Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for checking out my video. If you wish to sing high notes, then you will have to learn how to do one thing in particular. And I have an exercise that I feel that can help you with that practice. The one thing that you have to learn to do is deal with registration events. What are registration events, you say? They are configuration changes in the vocal fold as you progress up or down the scale. As you ascend and go higher in tessitura, then the vocal folds change configuration in order to accommodate those pitches. They then have to change back as you come back down. And too frequently, we get hung up on singular exercises that we are told will help us with this practice. And in truth, they can. Things like the siren, ooh, can certainly help with learning to access that part of our voice that is beyond the registration event. Things like the lip trill, with the siren even, can also help, again, with access, so that we can learn the physical sensations of that register of our voices. But here's the thing. Neither one of those exercises is particularly specific. In other words, I just ran through a whole smear of different pitches on my way up, and I ran through them on the way back down. And in between was my registration event. And it all goes pretty easily in the context of those exercises. Maybe it does for you as well. I certainly hope it does, because that is a very good place from which to begin. The thing is that frequently we get hung up when we try to quote unquote place the note someplace, and in so doing we inadvertently engage a lot of musculature and try to put that note someplace, and in so doing prevent that registration event from occurring. So, I would like to suggest to you that to begin the process of learning to sing these upper register pitches, you start with the siren or the lip trill, as I just demonstrated, but focus more on the sensation of what it feels like beyond the break, is the common parlance. I usually refer to it as the secondo passaggio for tenors and baritones. Frequently, for soprano and mezzos, it is in fact the primo passaggio, where they are feeling that transition most distinctly. Altos, contraltos, I'm sorry to say, you can feel this registration event experience in a couple different locations. Usually it's around A flat, above middle C. You can also feel more resistance again around that B flat, B natural. It is worth the effort, though, to work it out, because it unlocks so much range for you. So, as I said, ooh, notice what that feels like when you're up above that transition point. And then, having done that, if you are a baritone, I would start around here with a 1 octave descending arpeggio. And you want to have that hollow feeling. That's what it feels like to me. Your physical experience may differ. You. And the key here is to have that hollow feeling on the first note, the one that's at the octave, and then get back into your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest voice, once you're on the other 3 notes. So, you. And if that feels like it's a little too high, you might try it here. You. But be careful about going too low with this exercise. In as much as we want that hollow affectation for the first note when we're starting this exercise, we don't want it on any of the notes that are below the secondo passaggio, below the break. The same is true for you tenors. However, you may want to start on F sharp or G. You. Notice I've chosen the syllable U in this case. The oo vowel, for most of us, helps us keep the vocal folds adducted. That's another way of saying keeping the vocal folds closed. And if you want a consistent sound quality across the secondo passaggio, you have to have two things. You have to have the adduction of the vocal fold, and you have to have it elongate. When you do that, then you can sing and have the fullness of sound, not an airy voice, but also have that ease of transition. It doesn't sound strained or forced or anything like that, like it might if we were only going to use the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice or only the chest voice. So you're going to make that distinction here. Keep the vocal folds adducted, but allow for the elongation. You, 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 you. You, 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 you. Alto, contralto friends, you can do the same practices. You're just going to start in a little bit of a different location. You can start here. You, 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 you. And you could also start here. You, 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 you. Now, mezzos and sopranos, you are a bit of an interesting and special case in that frequently your primo passaggio can be more of a boundary to getting into your upper register than your secondo passaggio can be. But since I don't necessarily know your voice on a first-hand basis, let's cover both. The thing is, though, is that we're going to cover the primo passaggio a little differently than we did for our tenor and baritone friends. Now, in truth, you could use those exercises too. However, I wouldn't have you go quite so low. Your primo passaggio as a soprano is probably going to be about here-ish, and our mezzo friends will have their primo passaggio somewhere about here. What can frequently help us to get started with are some intervals, but I group them as a 1-5-1. So it'd be as if you were singing 1-5-1, you, you, you. And what we're going to do is have the top note be in that middle voice range, and the bottom note will be in your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. This can sometimes be an abrupt transition if you haven't practiced with it. So do have patience and take your time, but the U syllable will again be helpful. You, you, you. Try that. And we can try it here too. And coming back down. And now just the sopranos. And if that is problematic, use an E vowel on the bottom, or we. So it would sound like this. I'll show you here. You, we, you. The U syllable can help, again, keep the vocal folds adducted, but allow for elongation in your middle voice range. The E vowel tends to be a little bit easier to focus and narrow, and so it can help you get over that transition so you're in your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. Mezzos, try it there. You, we, you, and mezzos again. Sopranos too, really, and sopranos. One more time. And now it's quite likely, it's possible, let's put it that way. It's possible, mezzos and sopranos, that you have been singing past your secondo passaggio and maybe not even noticing it. It kind of flip-flops between the sopranos and mezzos and the tenors and baritones. Tenors and baritones will sing past their primo passaggio without noticing it a lot of the times. But we can struggle with our secondo passaggi. It's the opposite for sopranos and mezzos. You can frequently have issues around the primo passaggio and then sing past the secondo passaggio without noticing it. For you, it's a bit more of a balancing act. When we were working with the tenors and baritones, the instruction was you. So first pitch, cricothyroid dominant singing voice, that upper register. The rest of it, narrower thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, otherwise called chest voice. For you, when you are coming from above your secondo passaggio, you are not exiting an area where the cricothyroid muscles are, shall we say, less dominant. You are in an area where they are still very, very active. It is referred to as your middle voice register. And so it becomes an act of balancing out the cricothyroid dominance with still cricothyroid activity to a fair degree, but less of it. Mezzos, you might start here. So you're singing like I sang here, you, but balancing out that cricothyroid activity when you're here. And maybe one more. Sopranos, you can start there and ascend from there. So from here, you have likely cricothyroid dominance, more balanced cricothyroid activity, and mezzos. And that exercise is where much of my registration event practice and how I work with vocalists begins. It is worth noting that this is not a finished product, shall we say. It's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of the road. It is a way to have access to that higher register of your voice consistently, predictably, and when you want it, singing the pitch that you want to sing. Again, the physical sensations, we want them to be similar to what we experienced when we were doing the siren with either the lip trill or without the lip trill. But we are being more specific with the pitch. If we can bring that physical sensation over to the specific pitches, then we're really getting started with having consistent access that we can then start to work towards having with smaller intervals. So these intervals are quite large. They're perfect fourths, perfect fifths, things like that. We then narrow the intervals over time so that we're getting to the point where we can then sing scales back and forth. And that's when we really start to get to hear the sound of our voices across these registers. We truly begin to balance out the transition so that we have a seamless continuity of phrase and also seamless continuity of sound quality as well. So we get consistent tone, consistent sound of our voices across these registers. And then we're singing songs basically, just in a scale format, and we can work it into our songs that way so we get that nice transition. As always, I hope this helps. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Again, a big thank you to my subscribers and a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for helping me do what I do. And for all the rest of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I hope you sang along with some of the exercises. I hope to see you again. Take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and as I said, hope to see you again.